This episode is sponsored by JDAQA Software Testing, your scalable solution for manual, automated, security, and performance testing. Check us out at jdaqa.com. And with that, let's get on with the show.
This is The First Customer, hosted by Jay Agnew.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the First Customer Podcast. My name is Jay Agnew. Today, I am lucky enough to be joined by Andrew Kahl. He is the CEO of BackBox. He has founded another company before this. We'll talk about that. He's in Dallas, not a Dallas fan. So everybody who knows me that knows that we can be friends. Andrew, thanks for being on the show, buddy, for not being a hardcore Cowboys fan. And go Birds. So nice to have you. Nice to have you on, buddy.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's great to be here, and I'm glad we could be friends at the beginning of the show. It's usually the end of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. I mean, look, we talked about it. The Cowboys fan DNA is different. So, we're just meant not to like each other as Cowboys and Eagles fans. Where did you grow up, and did that have any impact on you being an entrepreneur later in life?
Yeah, so grew up in the Midwest, outside of Chicago. Was born out there in the city of Broad Shoulders, and went to school, undergraduate, University of Iowa, graduate degree, Notre Dame. Go Irish, go Hawks. And I think that did have a big influence because Midwest is just kind of hardworking people. And I got that work ethic. A lot of people talk about this, grandparents, parents, et cetera. And so, yeah, I think it did influence me quite a bit.
That's interesting. There's some common thread lately where like people who grew up on a farm are the people that have been on the show. And it's like,
Yeah.
you don't really think about the farmers and like the people in the Midwest as like being entrepreneurs, but like you are like you have clients, you have like you're building something, you're making something, you're selling it, you're doing all these things as an entrepreneur, as like a farmer, you don't really think of, but like that's a very like
Exactly.
it's a very right place for that out there.
Yeah, you're literally building the product, farming it, growing it, then you're harvesting it, you're taking to market. So you're everything, your production, your sales, your marketing. And yeah, it's kind of hard not to be an entrepreneur or have that feeling when you're surrounded by cornfields, when you're growing up.
Right. So what was the first business you started after you got done with your college days?
So the first business, so I went to work, a large company, like a lot of folks do, fell into high tech 30 years ago. But the first company I started, I was 30 years old, and I started it with two other guys, and it was a data security software company. And we had this idea in 2001 that data is starting to leave the four walls of the enterprise. And so, at the time it was really firewalls and antivirus was the only security software out there. And so we wanted to be able to encrypt data that was leaving the enterprise. And so it was a data encryption software company, non-governmental, because only government entities were really encrypting data. But we felt insurance companies, healthcare companies, financial services, data is the lifeblood of any company. So how are we going to protect it? That's when we started.
So who was your first customer for that business?
PepsiCo.
Oh,
I'll tell you what, getting landing a big customer like that out of the gate is incredibly rare. And it's obviously one of those, you call them a whale, that you want to land. And it was for just under $1 million that they spent with us, but we found the right person who had a specific need. And what it was is all their route drivers had all of the customer data on these little, they called them intermec devices. They were logging inventory and delivering, and those were getting stolen off the trucks. And so they wanted to protect those devices. And so
hmm.
we started the company in Dallas. PepsiCo was just up the street from us. We literally ran into the right person at the right time, and we talked about their need, and we're like, let's see what we can do together. And it started out as a joint development kind of custom project. And but that's really what defined our initial software offering that we put out to the market.
Nice to land a little mom and pop shop like PepsiCo and your first go at it. How did the product evolve from that? Did you kind of stick with what the service you provided for PepsiCo, or like how did it change over those 12 years?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a good question. It's interesting because, first of all, we had data to support that data, sorry to keep using that term, was leaving the four walls of the enterprise. We knew that there was information that was going outside of the office that had to be protected. And so as we started to do some prospecting and talking to more people, we're like, hey, we got this great use case. And of course, Pepsi was a great name when people say, well, who's your other customer? And we could just drop that. And so it kind of became, well, if Pepsi's using you guys, we should be talking to you guys. And so we went on this string where we started landing big customer after big customer. And we're a little company of literally 10 people, and we didn't even have $1 million in revenue yet. And so it really just became word of mouth that helped. But the common theme was we exploited this need that everybody had, or this problem that they saw coming was, hey, how do we protect the data once it leaves the building? And so from there, that we started thinking, okay, you got internet devices, you got laptops, you got back at the time, Blackberries, and I can't remember the name of them, but do you remember the first compact device that had a stylus that you could write on?
The Palm Pilot
Thank
was
you, the
it?
Palm
Was it?
Pilot, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so
Oh
all of
yeah,
a
I
sudden
remember
it's
those.
like, okay, now we gotta how do we start protecting all these different vehicles where data can leave the business? And so, yeah, that's how it influenced our overall thinking and the breadth of our product.
Were a lot of those businesses in the Dallas, or were you in Dallas at that point? I
We were
guess were they in okay, so were they in that area, a lot of the businesses you started to get?
Yeah, I mean, our second customer was Mary Kay Cosmetics, you know, and
Okay.
so also just up the street, but, I think they were doing maybe $1 billion in revenue. So, yeah, big customer. And then we started to exploit certain verticals, the business verticals like healthcare, financial services, where there's clearly a lot of confidential data that you don't want leaking out. We started to exploit those areas, and we got some big banks as customers. We got some large insurance companies as customers. So really got lucky, started in Dallas and then just matriculated out from there.
I mean, do you think it I always call it the hometown discount,
Yeah.
right? If you live somewhere that has potential customers, especially like a B2B kind of thing. I'm not talking like, a laundromat. Like obviously you have local customers, but like a B2B space and you're in a city, do you think it makes sense to focus in your own backyard, right? And like try to find because it is an icebreaker, I think, to be like, hey, I'm from here, which is like the immediate like the walls go down a little
Right.
bit.
Right.
And people at least let you look, you can peek over the wall to talk to somebody if you say, like, I'm in your local space. Does that help you guys, initially?
Absolutely. And it even helps us today. But back then it definitely was. I like that term hometown discount. Never heard that one before. So I may steal that from you if you don't mind.
Please do.
But yeah, it definitely helped with that. And then it was also the tangential relationships we had. So our bankers and our insurance brokers, there was interest from them. And we actually approached them and because we're young and scrappy, we're trying to find customers. We're like, we know that we can help you. Can you introduce us to people within your business? So we stayed within our sphere of influence, people that we were working directly with. And then, PepsiCo, we started to expand. Who are your partners? What are they doing? Who are your logistics providers? And so it's just started to expand from there. And if we got good word of mouth from PepsiCo to somebody that they were working with, or from Mary Kay to somebody that they were working with, that definitely helped us. But then it put a real impetus on us to make sure that we showed up properly because I don't want to ruin their reputation. If they're going to recommend us, we got to show up big like we know what we're doing.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, I always say there's a couple people in Philly that clients of ours that I think are our number one salesman,
Yeah,
right? Like if
exactly.
they're recommending you,
Yeah.
like it's a
Now,
no-brainer.
especially if you take care of them the right way. And I like the name of your podcast, The First Customer, because that first customer, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about what they need and what the market needs. And it really shapes your overall, customer engagement model. Now the term du jour is customer success, which I think is kind of silly because every customer should be successful. But it's like,
Right.
how do you take care of them? Because once you sell the deal, the long tail of the relationship is the care and feeding along the way. The relationship doesn't end once you get the purchase order and the payment.
Right. No, I mean, and the fun thing for me is taking the things that I've learned and then recycling them into the service itself, right? And like making the product or the offering or whatever it is. And it's like then your sales and marketing kind of evolve a bit because you're selling something different and you hear what the market thinks about that and you feed back in your product. It's like this big loop of like what your product starts as, which is kind of what the first customer is, like how you start getting that, but then it evolves and it becomes different and like you learn those things along the way. And I think that's a great story. I love the PepsiCo. So tell me when you went 12 years ish with that, did you guys exit that and then you moved on? Like what was the story? How did you end up at
Yeah,
Backbox?
no, thanks. So yeah, we did exit. We ran that for 12 years and then Dell actually acquired us. So it's a nice, successful exit. And we had started a partnership with them. We were actually the security solution on the Dell Latitude line of laptops.
Hmm, wow.
Because again, data's on laptops are leaving the building, how do you protect it? So we were the data encryption provider, which was Dell Data Protection. So they eventually said, hey, let's put a ring on it, to use a Beyonce term, and they bought us. And so then how I got to Backbox, the venture capital firm that funded us and the gentleman that sat on our board for 12 years, They started a private equity firm that started buying kind of small, sub-optimized companies with a good product. They bought BackBox in 2021. We'd kind of separated and gone our separate way. I went off and operated at scale, worked at some big companies like NetApp and Juniper, and then reconnected with the old venture capital firm in 2019. And they're like, hey, here's our new model. Here's what we're doing. Why don't you kind of be an operating advisor for us and help with some of these portfolio companies? And then just long story short, it became really interesting and fun. And they said, hey, would you like to lead one of these if we buy one that kind of fits your sweet spot? And I thought, well, why not? I love building. And if it's a chance to build something without starting from square zero, if you buy a company that is sub optimized, you redo it. Starting at square one is a lot harder. So that's how I got here. So they bought BackBox and asked me to step in and lead it to the next iteration of growth.
So did you have to learn from square zero who the customer was, right? I mean, you know nothing. I mean, or maybe you do, but do you know some stuff from your previous life that kind of helped you with this stuff? I mean, how did you identify who the hell you're supposed to be selling
Yeah,
to?
I mean, the good thing about this company is they had a little over 400 global customers. And so, my initial thought was, okay, we got a customer base. Let's get our arms around them and understand why they bought. What do they like about us? Is it the product? Is it the services? Are we aligning to their long-term roadmap? So a lot of time was spent early on, just number one, retaining those customers. But number two, understanding what they were looking for. What is it about Backbox that was compelling? And the more we dug into that, realized, hey, we got a really solid product here. So let's make sure that the product continues to get refined and be even better over time. And then what's the right care and feeding model so that we can make sure we retain those customers and they never leave. And so that was really probably the first year and a half of my 2.5 years here, spending time getting our arms around that. And to this day, I'm fortunate we've got very low turnover. Our net retention and our gross retention rates are fantastic. And so, yeah, I think everything that we've done here is what I learned at my first startup company, how to take care
Hmm.
of a customer because they've entrusted you with their time, their data, and their money. So you don't want to screw that up.
That makes a lot of sense. How did you guys get your arms around I struggle to say the why just because it's like a, very hippie term these days where it's like everybody wants to know their why and like, what's your why? But how did you figure it out? What are the actual steps you guys took to go, what's the common thread between these customers? How are we serving them? Like, did you survey them? Did you get on calls with them? How did you get your arms around 400
Yeah,
clients?
a little bit of both. And truthfully, there's not, we haven't, didn't talk to everyone, but we talked to the major customers.
Right.
So, we started with a large enterprise, the people that were writing the biggest renewal checks for us to understand them. And then we went down to that mid-market size. And it was a simple question. Why did you buy Backbox? And, they'd give us answers. So we did the survey and then we found out what that common thread was. And we
Hmm.
started to exploit that common thread, quality product. We're solving productivity problems. We're solving compliance problems. And so that's allowed us to figure out, number one, who our ideal customer is, who we want to sell to, and then what's the basic messaging. Because I hate complex messaging. I hate euphemisms and superlatives and MBA talk. It's like, do you have a problem? Yes. Okay. What's the problem? Okay. Can we solve it? Yes. And here's how we solve it. And so we tried to just scrape it down to the basics.
What is the problem that Backbox solves?
Yeah. So, well, use the simplest term.
I was going to say, you better be direct with
I
this
know.
because I just,
Exactly. So every company, so we do network automation. And what that means is we automate the process for all of your network security devices that are connecting to your network, whether it's a router, server, firewall, all of those have patches and upgrades. Doing that by hand takes thousands of man hours per year. Our automation software allows you to do two things. Number one, should your network go down, we can bring it back up very quickly the way it was configured so that all those devices reconnect and business can continue to flow. But more importantly, we automate the process for making sure that every router, server, switch, firewall has its patch, has its upgrade, is compliant, and is authorized to be on the network. Good case study, major soft drink manufacturer is a customer of ours. They were spending well over 4,000 man hours per year updating the devices on their networks. Our automation software took that down to 4 man hours per year. So it's a massive productivity savings. And when you have productivity savings like that, then you can save a heck of a lot of money and redeploy that money into other strategic areas of the business.
I love that. How are you guys keeping your sales pipeline full today?
Well, we do a lot of things. I mean, a combination of still do a few trade shows. There's some big networking trade shows that we go to, but a lot of it is organic. It's, SEO optimization on our website. It's content creation. It's making sure that we are, speaking the right language in and around the audiences that are interested in automation and network vulnerabilities. So we've really put a lot of our marketing dollars into that. We're not something you're going to see advertised on TV, but our funnel has grown significantly, and we're pretty excited about what we've been able to yield this year, and even more excited about what we're going to yield next year.
Who is your kind of target with that marketing? Like who in a company would be a prospect for you
Yeah,
guys?
no, thank man, this is like advertising here. I love this.
Well, I mean, it's your show.
Yeah,
This is your time, buddy.
no, it's the network administrator. It's the people that are really doing the work. And we don't, a lot of enterprise software companies sell to the C-suite or the VP. And now they're usually involved in the decision process and will approve a PO, but we sell directly to the people that are feeling the pain. The network administrator or the network teams that are running the backbones of the company that are having to do those configurations or write scripts for the automations that are dealing with the disparate number of devices that are connecting to the network. And so, yeah, we sell directly to them because we're solving the problems for them.
Got it. Did you know that when you took over as CEO? Did you know that was your target?
Not initially, because my initial thought was, hey, we're IT infrastructure, so we're going to be selling at the C level. And I was actually pleasantly surprised to find out that would work because you start selling at the C level, that elongates the sales process. And one of the things we've been really fortunate is over the course of the year, we've dropped our average sales number of sales days by half. And so, and that's partly because we've been really refined on our message and we're selling directly to people that feel the pain.
So did those guys, and this is getting very into the weeds
That's
about your
okay.
specific customer, which I don't typically do, but I'm curious. It's applicable in a bunch of different edge cases or use cases. I'm thinking of it, but if you're not selling at the C-suite and you're not selling at the guys that write the checks, what is the thought process to get from that, internal champion or whatever you're going to call it that you get at the network administration level? How do you get to the CFO? Do you have to just convince that network administrator guy, like, this is the product for you guys? I need you to go to bat for this at your the C level. Like, how does that work?
Well, we try, that's a fair question. And so, yes, we do ask that question, of course, but we try and understand what are their IT initiative, their strategic initiatives for the year. Is it security? Well, if it's security, then we can play in that realm because we help from a compliance standpoint, ensuring that devices have their patches and their upgrades. And so if we can understand from a corporate standpoint what their strategy is, from a departmental standpoint what their strategy is, 9 times out of 10 we can align to one of those and say, okay, this is why we are a good fit. Yes, we're solving a problem for you, but if you look at where your strategy is headed, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, we can align to that as well. And that's what we want to do because that creates, this is an overused term, but that creates stickiness within the account. If they see that I don't want to just be a point in time solution, I want us to be embedded in their infrastructure and a critical component to how we keep them up and running every day. And if we can align to that, then that helps the sales process considerably.
And what is the kind of next step there? Is it to build a proposal, for that network administrator? And again, very in the weeds here, but are they they upselling it to their C-suite?
Yeah, they are, especially when you're dealing with productivity and dollar savings.
Okay.
Those are going to get anybody in the C-suite interested. If somebody hears, oh, I can get this done at a fraction of the cost, tell me more. So
Right.
there's a door opener there. The other area, of course, is compliance. I mean, especially the regulated industries like healthcare and financial services. Again, if we can say, hey, that device is not patched, you're out of compliance, or that device is not authorized to be on your network, or on your network, you've got this vulnerability. If we can identify those things, which we do, then all of a sudden we're a real partner to them because we're ensuring that they don't have any potential areas for a security breach. And again,
Right.
that gets the attention of a CISO level person.
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. You mentioned trade shows, a few big shows that you guys go to. What is the strategy for a company like you guys at a trade show? Is it just awareness? Is it to meet
Yeah.
like the right person there? Is it just to meet some? Because typically it's not. the CTOs, CISO, like none of the C-level people are at these conferences for the most part,
Right.
right? Some kind of sub lower level of that. Are you still just trying to make connections there? Like, what is your goal for those
No,
conferences?
it's two very specific things. Number one, you're spot on. It usually is the end user that's going to these shows. I mean, we go to things like Checkpoint, and we were just at one in Denver this week called AutoCon. That's for the network administrators, the users. And so if we can get the users interested in who we are and be there and be able to have questions and do demos and let them play with the product, that's going to get them excited. So to your point, we're specifically targeting the end users. But at all of these trade shows, what we're doing is we're actually finding ways to be part of the speaking agenda. So you've usually, whether it's a keynote or getting on stage or doing a live demo, we want to be able to build our brand awareness by talking about the problems that we solve. Lot in the past, and I've been guilty of this. You spend money, you go to a trade show, you stand at a booth, and you kind of just wait for people to come by. We've said, okay, if we're going to go to a show, I want to be part of the show and being part of this. Like our CTO just spoke at AutoCon last week at Cisco Live. We go to that. He's part of the on the floor discussions with panels with other CTOs, and so doing that is helping build brand awareness for us and highlighting the problem that exists with network administrators of time, complexity, potential security breaches, security risks.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I love the phrase, if we're gonna go to a show, be part of the show. I think that's a really, and obviously it depends on where you are in your company size and
Right.
growth and goals and all that stuff to kind of be at that point. But I think it's a great point for some of the more mature businesses out there. All right, last question, non-business related,
Okay.
just for Andrew. If you could do anything on earth and you knew you couldn't fail, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. I would go to work in I couldn't fail. Boy. I'd go to the NBA. I was a basketball player back in the day, loved it. Sadly, I thought my talent would get me. I didn't, I was at the age where I didn't combine talent and work ethic. I didn't realize the two needed to meet.
Right.
And so I got so far on raw talents, but didn't put forth the work ethic. But I always felt I at least could have gotten a shot.
Funny enough, you're the second person on the show that has said that want to be in the NBA.
Wow.
The other one, yeah, I can't remember who it was, but you're the second person who said that. So like, it's not that crazy of a thing to say. And I love the sports ones because that's like we all kind of relate to being a kid, and you're like, you think you could do something, and then like you said, the work it's got to be. That's why it's so impressive. You see those guys doing what they're doing. You're
Oh
like,
yeah.
Michael Jordan was not Michael Jordan because he was born that way. Like he was a obsessive, he got so much better from his first year in the NBA till his, fifth or sixth or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, anyway, so I love that answer. If people want to find you, Andrew, if they want to find more about Backbox, where do they find you?
Go to backbox.com. Pretty straightforward. And it's BACKBOX. Backbox, not black box. That's what's on an airplane. We are backbox.com or look for me on LinkedIn or us
You might need to,
on LinkedIn.
okay. I was gonna say you might need to find a way to get Backbox on the black box, and then you could just use both of them to
Well,
get. But
yeah, that'd be fine for product.
Backbox now on Blackbox. All right. Thanks for joining, Andrew. You're fantastic. Enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll talk to you soon, buddy. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jay. Appreciate it.
See you, man.